everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kinky Politics. We are your hosts, dun, 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 Kai, as well as
Chris.
Yay!
You remember me? Past.
Yes, blast from the past. Jordan was, he got into some issues and some traveling stuff. So our long lost is back. Chris is back, and it's so good to have you back, Chris. We've missed you. And I hope this becomes a thing where if Jordan has, some issues going on, we could just get it together. So hopefully it does. Our topic for today is PC culture. And I've been wanting to talk about this because I just feel that the world is changing into a really, into a very politically correct place, which has its pros in a lot of respects, but also, as I'm finding, has its cons. And I'm not sure about you, Chris. You can let us know what your take is with this stuff, but it'd be good to hear what you think about PC culture and where you sort of stand with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember from the 90s, but like this was kind of a thing that happened in the 90s as well. It wasn't to this extreme, but I remember it happening in the 90s where you would see people like things that were allowed, you could say like during the Reagan years, all of a sudden during the Clinton years, it would get you in a lot of trouble and you would have to issue public apologies for, but there wasn't really social media then. So it wasn't quite the same. It was more like always through the newspaper and your publicist would handle it and it would kind of go away.
Yeah.
But then once social media kind of came around, it's kind of just been getting worse and worse. I definitely agree with and understand kind of like, I think what's behind it is like this whole idea that they want society to progress and change and become more equal and all that stuff. But, from what I see that kind of terrifies me is it's like, it just kind of crosses the line a lot and there's no room for growth or forgiveness in a lot of instances where it's like, I don't know, like if you say some just egregious stuff that like, I don't know, like the Harvey Weinstein stuff, like, yeah, I understand like canceling somebody in that situation or, something like that. But if you just kind of like say something that's like, I don't know, kind of like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 on a scale of like egregious. And it's maybe something that you're not even like, because like I've even gotten into trouble and I consider myself to be a pretty progressive, like down with the cause type of person. But I also kind of speak without a filter sometimes. Like, for example, this progressive group that I'm a part of, we had a group chat or whatever, and there's a few transgender people in the group chat. I made a joke, I don't know, a month ago, something like that, where I don't know if you saw that John McCain's widow was appointed by Joe Biden to some UN role for agriculture, and she has no experience in agriculture. Like, if you look into her record, like you're kind of left scratching your head, like, why would you appoint Cindy McCain to be a spokesperson for agriculture or giving advice on agriculture? It doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And I made a joke in this group. I was like, that would be like appointing me as a straight white man, as I say, but as a cis white man, as they insist on calling me, to be that, which is another thing too. Like if I refer to myself as straight, that's like offensive to some people. And they're like, no, you can't do that. Or like at my job now, like when we do group chats like this, we have to all have our pronouns in there. Like if you don't do that, it's a big thing.
Let's talk about
things like that. But I made this joke that I was like appointing Cindy McCain to be like the head of agriculture for the UN or the U.S. ambassador or whatever she is would be like appointing me to be like the transgender ambassador to the UN, which I thought was like not really offensive. Like, obviously, I thought I was just highlighting a point. Like, she has no experience in being in agriculture. I have no experience in being trans. Thought it was kind of an apples to apples kind of comparison. Nothing too bad. I had like these the trans people in the group were coming out of the woodwork, just like attacking me, saying I was being insensitive to trans rights and trans communities
What
and
did they
trans
say?
experience and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, like if I was a celebrity right there, I would have had to been issuing an apology, like saying I'm sorry and like all that stuff on Twitter. And it's like, that's the
What
kind
did
of
they?
stuff where I like,
Wait a minute. Because I'm trying to find, see, this is the problem, is I'm also trying to find an issue with that. I'm not finding an issue with that at the moment, I guess, because I'm not trans.
yeah.
But my sister is trans, right? And so I should have the sensitivity, at least I want to have the sensitivity, but I don't know, like, what was the problem? Like, honestly, what was the problem?
Well, what they were saying was that I think there's two things about it. Number one, if you are a white male, especially a straight white male, and you talk about any kind of like other minority group or thing like that, it's always going to be perceived a little differently. Whereas, like, if I was a queer black woman and I made that same comment, I don't think there would have been really the pushback to it. But as a straight white man, there's always like this extra hostility and kind of like, just no, you can't talk about us type of thing. So that's kind of like something I've noticed. Whereas, like, because my girlfriend, obviously, she's a black woman, I'm a white man. If I've been in situations where like we agree on the same thing, if she makes the comment, it won't get taken as, I don't know, it won't get taken the same way as if I make the same comment.
Are
And
you
I'm like,
sure that it's not the way she says it?
well, I would think not, because she's actually a little more aggressive and confrontational than I am. Like, I'm kind of like the more, I don't know, like I'm the more peaceful one. I think that's more so too, because like I understand that, like, especially because we're usually in left spaces. So in left spaces, I'm aware that like people are going to be looking at me suspect from the jump because I'm a white man. So it's like, because of that, like I understand I have to kind of like be careful about how I say things and things like that. Whereas she has total freedom to just come in there guns blazing, and
Well,
if anything,
I
like
feel you. I feel you in that there's been more, especially in the last probably like 2, 3 years, there's been more scrutiny on cis white males.
since Trump got elected,
Yeah,
yeah,
so I can see why people have their antennas up and why you would have your antennas up as well, and feel a little bit like I have to be careful right now, which must be kind of uncomfortable when you're not really used to walking on eggshells or used to like talking in code.
yeah, it's really weird when somebody's like, no, I want your honest opinion, and I'm like,
Oh
fuck.
God.
I was like, do you really though? Like, because if I give you my honest opinion, like this could lead to trouble, and like I don't want to start then having to explain and defend every little thing I say. And like, no, I didn't mean it like that. That was even one of the things they said in the thing too. It started off with, I know you didn't intend to, or your intent wasn't to be blah 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 blah, but I'll explain why they said it was offensive. They said it was because I was comparing like an experience that you can learn, which I guess they think that you can just read a book and know agriculture. I don't know. Like, to me, like, as somebody who grew up like around farming communities, like I was looking at it like I know people that have been farming their whole lives. So that's like a lived experience. That's something you have to live and understand. Because even though I lived around a farm community, I don't know shit about farming. But I went to school with people who are like fourth generation farmers. So it's like they know agriculture. I don't know agriculture. I can't read it in a book and learn it, just like I can't read a book about transgender experience and feel like I know what it's like to be trans. So, but they were saying I was comparing like a knowledge you can learn in school versus like a lived experience. And I was like,
I
that
get
wasn't what
that.
I was trying to do. And they was that they didn't think I was trying to do that, but that's how they were just letting me know, like, this is how trans people will perceive it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm sorry. I didn't, I won't speak about the trans community again.
That makes
I
sense.
don't want to jump in that
Makes
camp.
sense. But it was like you were coming in to defend, weren't you?
I felt I was, but yeah, yeah,
But it
I
does.
don't know. But it was just one
I
of those,
understand.
like, and you probably don't follow sports too much, especially now that you're in Australia. But
Trying to.
you know who Stephen A. Smith is, right?
Steve who?
You know Stephen A.
Sorry?
Stephen A. Smith. He's on ESPN.
No.
Famous. He's a black guy. He's like ESPN's most famous kind of sports person. He has like a morning show he does every morning where he kind of gives hot takes on issues and is so anyway, he got into a big thing where he had to issue an apology like within the past week, I think it was, because he said he didn't think it was good for Major League Baseball to have their best player, like kind of their star player, be somebody who needs an interpreter to talk to the media, because there's this Japanese player who's like doing things that haven't been done since Babe Ruth. Like he's a star. He made the All-Star team as a pitcher and as a hitter, which hasn't been done in almost 100 years. So that's like a huge, huge deal. But he's from Japan and he uses an interpreter to talk to the media. So Stephen A. Smith said he didn't think that was good for Major League Baseball to like have the face of the league be somebody who needs an interpreter. And he got blasted on Twitter after it for basically calling him racist, essentially. So the next day he had to issue an apology and say he didn't mean any offense to the Asian community and all that stuff, which I was like, I kind of agree. Like if you want somebody to be the face of your brand, you want that person to be somebody who can at least speak to your consumers in the same language. Like that makes, like, if somebody goes over to Japan, for example, like you wouldn't want them to constantly have to be using an interpreter if they're going to be the ambassador of, I don't know, sumo wrestling or whatever's, a Japanese specific type of sport. Like that just wouldn't make a lot of sense. I feel like somebody who spoke Japanese would be much more marketable, because he was talking about marketability. But
Yeah.
little things like that, I don't feel like that's something you should have to be apologizing for. But then it's like, if I say something out loud, it's like, am I being racially insensitive?
Yes. So exactly. So I'm feeling that. Like I feel like the reason why this whole like PC politically, but like the reason why it's come about has been great. It's like it allows for more inclusivity. It allows for voices that weren't really heard or understood properly for who they really were to actually be heard and valued on the space, rather than one particular group or one particular demographic seemingly changing the course of a lot of things. And the whole politically correct culture really invites more tolerance and invites more diversity of thought. And it enriches us globally, because it gives us a chance to see things a little bit differently, which is really good. And it allows us to see,
Sorry, I kind of disagree with a little bit of that, but I'll let you finish.
All right. And, and it allows us to also be sensitive to other people, other cultures, other lifestyles. And, and that's important. What I feel like is a little bit of an issue is everybody has an opinion. And, and there's the old adage, like opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, but because of the onset of social media and what it's sort of turned into, everybody shares their opinion. And I remember when it was cool not to share your opinion because you actually didn't have enough information, or you weren't actually someone credible to be saying stuff like that. So as an example, like, like I don't know, like with Stephen, whatever, he's, it's like I can see how that would slip into something else, of which would look very, has these sort of very Western racist undertones, not even like he's racist against Japanese, but just like English is supreme. And in my opinion, he can speak on that because he's a media professional. But the thing is like, he's not a media professional who outwardly or publicly gives their ideas on what they think the world will like. Those types of comments are made in a closed setting with a team of people where a producer or, the management basically will say like, we need this type of a guy for this type of marketability. We need him to be able to be this way, that way. An interpreter, will work for these reasons. An interpreter will not work because of this particular demographic. I mean, it's a type of thing where you would still need, if you weren't familiar with your team, a really good backstory on to say like, he's great, he's amazing. There has to be a way we can do this so that we can reach a larger audience, for most people in media, if you don't speak English, there may be a bit of, impermeability, like not impermeability, but there may be, it may lack viewership, for example, because most people understand English, and even if an interpreter is there, it may be a thing where it's distracting. And so viewership might go down as opposed to hearing someone who can speak English and doesn't need an interpreter. And it isn't that he's, at least from what I can understand, it's not like he's attacking him personally or the fact that he's Japanese. It's just that he's like, this is what I understand in the market. But the problem is that's not his conversation. Like he discusses sports and the lifestyle of sports, not this particular, this is casting, this is behind the scenes, this is a different thing, and it involves a team, a discussion, and it's private, and the world doesn't get to know. So I think that PC culture is changing, and it's changing for the worse. It's just becoming more and more like, what the hell? Like,
I agree for like one reason, which just kind of brings up the reason I just kind of disagree with something about your statement, is the reason I feel like it's changing for the worse is because it's changing to where I feel like it's attacking free speech at a point, because it's not allowing diversity of thought anymore. Like it's basically fighting diversity of thought, because I feel like PC culture, like, and it is a tricky balance, because like on one hand, you don't want to allow people just to be saying like xenophobic or racist, misogynistic stuff in public without any consequence. But at the same time, when you have, I don't know, people on Twitter or corporate executives or whoever it is that's deciding what is misogynistic or what is not misogynistic or what is racist, because a lot of times like you don't even like every time you hear like see an article or something where it'll be like so-and-so made a racist comment and they're in trouble now, they never even tell you what the person said. So it's like you as the audience or society have no way to really know how to feel about it. You're just kind of like put into these camps of like, I support it or I don't support it without even knowing any facts. And that gets really dangerous, because then it's like, because I just saw like something the other day. It was like Germany was playing Honduras in an Olympic exhibition game or something like that. And the German team walked off because they said that one of the Honduran players made a racist comment to one of the black German players, and that was it. And I was like, well, what was the comment? Like, what did they say? Because you have no way of really, because I know, like, for example, there's a common phrase like in Latin and Central and Latin America. Um, you're aware the word negro in Spanish means black. So in those countries, they use the word negrito as like I don't know the exact translation of it, but it's a common phrase in those cultures. And players from Central and South America that play in Europe will, like, if there's like a Native American looking one or a white American one or white looking Caucasian one, it has like a black teammate from the same country, he will call him negrito. And it's not like a racist thing in their country, but Americans decided that it's racist, even though like these players in the country have explained to them like, no, in our culture this is not a racist term. Like even the black players have explained it, they're like, no, this isn't a racist term in our culture. They still, like, in America, if a soccer player uses that term, they will get suspended for like 10 games and not get paid for those games. It's crazy. It's like, this is where it's like you're telling people from another culture what's acceptable language from their culture, and they're telling you like, no, this you're I don't know if misappropriating would be the right word, but you're completely misunderstanding our culture, and you're telling them you know their culture better than they do because like it jives with like the American understanding of stuff. And it's like, I don't know, that's just, it's getting a little crazy to me, like when it's going that far. Even
Yeah.
like, well, I'm sure you love you love stand-up comedy, right?
Yep.
So like all the famous like black stand-up comedians have all speak about this all the time. Like they talk about how much they hate PC culture. They refuse to play college campuses anymore because of it.
Yeah.
And like they talk about like how it's ruined comedy movies.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why you don't really see much funny comedic movies for the past like 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Because everybody's afraid to kind of, because comedy is always about like kind of making jokes that kind of push to that line.
Yeah.
But they said everybody's afraid to do that now because like you don't, nobody wants to get canceled and lose their career and lose all their sponsorships and stuff like that.
I read an article about that, and I kind of think that that's sort of bullshit. Like that's like a really, like, the reason I think that one's bullshit, especially with the comedians, is because if you have to make a career making fun of people, like that's how you're going to make your career, just like dragging people, then you don't really have a good career. Like you're not really funny, you know? Like if that's really like all you can do and you feel like, as a result of this, I'm not funny anymore, then like you were never funny.
That's what all great stand-up comedians have done.
No, they have not. Fucking look at Sinbad.
Well, Sinbad's like family friendly. You're talking about family friendly comedians like
Whatever.
Bill Cosby.
He's still a comedian. He's still a comedian. Even the white comedian that you introduced me to, who's amazing. He's got so many specials on Netflix. I think his name is David. Huh?
Oh.
You're frozen. What?
You see me now?
Yeah.
Is he bald?
No, he's blonde, and his wife had like a brain tumor, and he's a writer as well. He's very funny, very, very funny, and he doesn't cuss a lot.
Oh, is he like? Is it Jim Gaffigan? Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's lots of, and these people are naturally funny people. There's comedians, like really good comedians, don't need to rely on that shit. Like they're not afraid of PC culture. They can do it. If they're good, they're good.
True. Yeah, it's a unique, specific type of comedy.
Yeah, no. I also think too, there's something sort of inherently fucked up about making fun of people just to make fun of them. So I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
But
I don't think that's what comedians do, but I don't want to get off topic.
But also I feel like I think that, you know, the thing is America's advanced, especially with the, I had a conversation, it's so weird that you're talking about this. I had a conversation with my former roommate about the use of the word negrito. His wife is from, I'm not wife, girlfriend, ex-girlfriend at the time, is from El Salvador. And she told me how she, you know, she's like, yeah, this is how they use the word. And so, and I was like, you see, I'm offended by that because I'm a Black person and this is the history of the word here, right? And so it bothers me and I don't like it being used. And she said, you know what? Even though we say that that it's part of our culture, people who are dark feel bad when they are called those, you know, negrito, or they're called, you know, and I said, are you sure about this? And she said, yes, because we have what's called colorism in our country, and it's part of the culture. So the thing that I think sometimes Americans don't realize is that in a lot of ways, we are very progressive because of technology, because of just our advancements in the world and what we've been able to do, that we're light years ahead of most countries socially, particularly socially. And so it doesn't surprise me that if that word was used to a German player who's obviously going to be advanced socially,
yeah,
he's in the West, right? That's going to be an issue. So just because that, you know, these Spanish-speaking countries aren't up on it, doesn't mean that they still don't suffer the same types of shit that we've been suffering in our country. We're just clued in on it now. And it's become a thing for us now. It's not a thing for them there. In South Africa, they still have class tiers, right? Where being colored is better in a lot of respects than being Black, okay?
Yeah.
And being colored is anyone who looks like me or lighter or even a bit darker, as long as they have flaxen hair, as long as they have a bit more European features. It's something that isn't spoken about, but the fucked up thing is that they still have verbiage for it, like the word colored, which is like, every time I hear it, I'm just like, oh, you know, I go down there and they're like, oh, you're colored. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I have no idea. No. Oh, yes, I am that. Because it's something that is okay, but I don't feel good about it. You know, I feel awful. I know it's a part of their culture, but very soon they're going to do away with that. And I think that's for most of these fucking crazy ass words. You know, negrito still means Black. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, fuck. Like,
yeah,
it's not just, it isn't just, you know, it's not as if that word is just, it just means Black. It's not like it's like, you know, that equals Black. It's like, no. it has a history, you know, and you know, she didn't get into it too deeply because sometimes her accent is a bit of a thing, but like, you know, she said that the friends that she knows and that she's talked to, they don't like it, but they know that that's what people say, so they just deal with it. But anyway, when I was saying, you know, diversity of thought, I hear what you're saying too, in that it stops the conversation because people are like, oh, whoa, you just offended me. It's over and you're canceled. I think that this is a problem. So we can still continue to use this example of the soccer player, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so we're just going to cancel a guy? Like, is that what we're doing? Like, we're just going to stop the game here? Because to me, if someone's aware of what they've done, that's one thing. If someone is aware, is not aware, and they don't care, that's another thing. If someone's aware and they don't realize what they've done, I think there should be a little bit of room for understanding and a little room for teaching and for growth. But I think we're still, as a society, but particularly America, we're still at this place where we're learning what politically correct means right now, because it's becoming it's becoming a little bit more involved. Let's just even talk about these pronouns. You know, I've got a trans sister, right, who is really just my sister. But I consistently forget the pronouns. Mm-hmm. And another thing is in the various languages in South Africa. So, for example, my parents' native tongue, they don't have pronouns. So everybody's basically they.
Oh, that's got to make it easy right now for them then.
Yeah, but when they speak English, they like what growing up, my dad used to call me he all the time. You know?
He?
Yeah, he used to call me he all the time. Because it never meant anything. He, she is nothing. It was always they, them. So it was like not a big deal. But I struggle like trying to like wrap my head around those pronouns, and I know it's super important. But the thing that I am like, what is having to identify myself with a she or her on the top of a lot of my social pages, like my email or things like that. I understand where it's coming from and the movement and why it's there, but I'm also like, I'm okay without it, you know? And I'm not going to say, like, I'm okay with not sharing my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like, if someone came up to me and was like, shit, you're not using pronouns? I'd be like, no. Yeah. And that's it. I wouldn't be like, no, I'm not using them because blah, 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 blah. And that's the problem. I feel like the problem is everyone's fucking talking. Before we didn't talk, we were like, I don't know, would that hurt your feelings? And those who were talking were either looked at idiots and were looked at like idiots if they were fucking up all the time, right? Or respected because their opinion was based on some kind of fact or they had some sort of credibility. So now, through social media, everybody has a fucking opinion. We know what everyone's doing. We know what everyone's having for breakfast. We can or cannot, like, and
I kind of feel like,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel like with the pronouns thing, like my feeling on it is like, if you clearly are physically a woman, right? You have a female's voice, you look very feminine, you're dressed like a woman. I don't need you to fucking tell me you're a woman. I can figure that shit out on my own. Now, if you are a woman or clearly a man or whatever, and you are non-binary, then yeah, you might want to label that and let people know, like, hey, I identify as they, them. So people know. Or if you are, because or if you're like a trans person who is not transitioned, where you still physically are male, but you identify as a woman, in that situation, vice versa, whatever, you probably need to let people know, just, you know, if you know, so there's no miscommunication or confusion. But if you are a cis person and you identify with the gender you were given at birth, I don't see why I need to let people know I'm a man. Like, I figure they could look at that and tell. And if they're, you know, if I want them to know I'm not a man, I feel like I can let them know. Like, I don't feel like I need to start every meeting with, hi, my name's Chris. I go by he, him. And,
you know. You're so funny. I love you, Chris. I love you.
I don't know, but that would get me in a lot of trouble, like in left circles. Like,
correct. And the reason is because, and the argument here is that that's true, but it's an assumption. So as an example, maybe you haven't transitioned, right? And let's say I'm going through my transition and it's going really well. And you call me by a pronoun that's a man, a female pronoun, I'm like, no, I'm a man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're going to be confused. I'm going to be confused, and it's going to be an awkward situation. So I understand why this is happening, and it's basically, I feel like, because I think transgender stuff, right? I think that's why the pronouns are so important.
I eventually had to ask because I was even afraid to ask because like it happened so quickly. It was like 1 year it was not a thing, and then the next year every Zoom call I get on, everything's he, him, her, and I'm like, what is this? When did this start? But I was afraid to ask because I was like, I don't want to get accused of being like, not woke enough. And so then eventually I had to ask about it, and I was told that it was like something to like show solidarity with the trans movement or trans people, and I was like, I get one to, support trans people, but this doesn't seem, I don't see how this is like really leading to any wins for the trans community in terms of rights or legislation.
Right.
Like that's kind of my thing. And I don't know, maybe this is just insensitive, but I feel like also if, given what I've kind of heard trans people say about like all the different things they go through in life, like if accidentally like getting mispronounced one time by somebody who doesn't know you is like gonna trigger you. Like I would figure like you probably go through a lot more, you have a lot more things that are more, I don't know, like you've been through a lot more like in life to where that shouldn't be something that like is really on your radar of things that are going to get you that worked up, where it's like if I see you and you're wearing a skirt and I call you her and you have to be like, oh no, I actually go by they, or I actually go by he, I would think like, oh, okay, my bad. And then I can call you the right word now. Like that shouldn't be like something that's really going to like irk you that much, given like a lot of the other things you're facing in society from people that are treating you as like a second class citizen or some circus freak show, because that's where they are on the spectrum of like respecting trans rights and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just.
I feel you on that, but also it's like that's not our position to say whether or not it's going to affect them or trigger them because of whatever they've been through in life. It's like maybe that thing is compounding, or maybe that thing is a trigger because that's what, I don't know, they were beat senselessly with someone calling them her. I don't, you know what I'm saying? And I don't mean to get into the semantics or the nitty gritties about it, because obviously I want, I'm a Black woman. I want for things to be as inclusive as possible. Shit, I do whatever I got to do, That's what we're doing now. I guess that's what we're fucking doing now. But I can't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Like I'm going through, and it may be as a result of my upbringing, which is probably why you and I get along so well. You're from Indiana, I grew up in a bit of a conservative home, despite being very socially liberal. There are just like, I'm afraid, we've got this show, right? We've got Kinky Politics. There's a number of other things I work on. I'm an actress. I have an opinion and I like to talk. And sometimes I say things that are a little bit off the cuff, like not thought out, or, I'm just giving ideas and I don't want to be canceled. Like I've spoken to you and I've said some shit like, J-Lo can't sing. Yeah. Like I think about that sometimes where I'm like, shit, should I have said that? Because, I did a whole episode on like why we like J-Lo so much. And it's like, I started to feel bad. Like I started to feel bad for having this opinion of why I don't particularly like her as a musician. And that's my opinion. Should I have, maybe the problem was I shouldn't have shared that idea because it wasn't flattering. But like, is that what we are? Either you flatter and it's like positive culture, or it's like PC culture where you don't say anything if it's not particularly positive, But I'm like, shit, you know, we give opinions on this show. I'm just talking. That's the layout of the show, right? But what if something happens? I get booked for something and my career starts going or whatever. And then they go through my archives of bullshit and they find one of the Kinky Politics episodes where I'm just ramming into J-Lo and then I'm canceled, you know? And it's like, so it's, you know, and I keep thinking about it. It's like, I have loved all my life. I loved Michael Jackson. And I'm afraid to now say that or show like any kind of like, yeah, like I loved him, blah, 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 blah. You know, because I don't want people to be like, you liked a rapist or a child molester, a pet, you know.
Like you mean personally.
Huh? You know, like all this shit.
Personally. I like the Cosby Show still. I don't like what Bill Cosby did.
And that's another thing. Like we were supposed to talk about the Cosbys, me and Jordan. That's the whole reason why we spoke about this topic is because we were supposed to talk about Bill. And I have an unpopular opinion. And I don't want to talk about it right now because I feel like I could get crushed forever. And no, I don't like what he did. If he did, all that he did, when he did, how he did. So let me preface that. I am not into like, I'm all for fucking this the Me Too movement is great and it needs to have happened. There's been so much shit. I
just want to clarify real quick. You don't have the same take that his co-star from the Cosby Family had, the lady that played his wife. When he got released from prison, she was basically like, fuck yeah, a good man got let out. I was like, what the hell, lady?
Yeah,
like,
I have an unpopular opinion, you know?
Okay.
I don't think that he should be persecuted like this. And, you know, and I do recognize that I have a bias, several of them. And those biases are, I'm sensitive to the fact that he's a Black man who has a lot of money in media and is just getting shot down. And that just, I'm sensitive to that. I've seen that enough in the media that I'm just like, not with it. And then secondly, I have a bias because I grew up on that show and everyone compared our family to that family. So I was like, what could my dad possibly have done wrong here? Right. And so in knowing those things about, you know, how I think about things, right? Or in knowing those things about myself, you know, I try to look a little bit objectively because like, I can't help those implicit, you know, those fucking biases that are in there. But, you know, what's wrong is wrong and what's right is right. So there's that. I will say that. But I've been afraid, very afraid to talk about it because I think my opinion is unpopular. And I feel like I would be fucking dragged, especially as a Black woman. So, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where on the spectrum I am if I say, like, yes, I hate him, or no, I think he's a saint. It's like, if I don't say, yes, I hate him, I'm wrong. I'm like wrong. And I can feel that because every time I have these conversations, people are like, and so I'm like, you know what?
You do believe he did it though, right?
I don't need to have these conversations. We can go into that later.
Okay.
I don't want to go into it because, you know, I've been following this thing for a long time. And so I've got some, you know, yeah. So, but with the PC culture thing, I just feel like it's going to continue to get worse. There was an athlete from Britain who was, she's 18, 19 years old. And they basically said she started to hyperventilate. She started to say she couldn't breathe. and she was having a meltdown, right? And the commentator, he's an American commentator who's very, very well known. He played tennis. He's incredible. He basically said, as he's watching this and commentating on it, he's like, oh, wow, you know, we've seen this before. We've seen, you know, young players who basically have a chance to compete on a big arena, and it's like a luck of the draw. We've seen them hyperventilate or just be so overwhelmed by playing in this stature that their emotions just get the better of them and they just can't do it. She was told to leave and not continue to play because she was just so, like, they said, you know, she was breathing too hard, blah, blah, blah. And he got terminated. Like some like really important woman who played tennis for years, very well respected in the tennis community, said like, this is middle-aged white men should never talk about the mental health of young female players. And it wasn't yet released that there was no statement or anything released to say like what was wrong with her or anything like that. So no one knew like if maybe she had a heart attack or whatever. He was just saying what he thought it looked like, right?
Yeah.
And so he got burned alive. This guy has been at this shit for like 35 years. Okay. And everyone likes him universally. Okay. It came out. She literally said like, yeah, I just got really overwhelmed. I got really overwhelmed and the crowd was
right.
Huh?
She comes out and says the white guy was right.
You know, and I was just like, you see, this is just so, and it's hard for me because I feel like the PC culture has allowed, as I mentioned, for voices that normally are not even considered at the table, expressions or ideas that are not even considered at the table to actually be heard. So someone actually saying like, hey, I actually don't like the way you said that to me. That actually doesn't sit well with me. And that person actually understand and be like, oh shit, really? I didn't realize. Why? Like those kinds of conversations have not really been able to be, have not taken precedence. And for the first time, it has been fucking great. But it's getting too, it's now where I'm like, do I say that? Shouldn't I say that? Should I hold my tongue? Maybe I should just think about that. And it's like, okay, I keep saying to myself, like, okay, it's cool. Like, you know, I don't need to be talking. I talk too much. Just shut up. It's fine, you know?
It's weird to hear you say that to me because from my perspective, I feel like if you are not a white man, and even maybe white women a little bit now too, but still not, I still don't feel like white women are there yet. But if you're not a white man, I feel like you have complete freedom of speech. You can say whatever the fuck you want. But if you're a white guy, there could be some serious consequences. So you need to really watch what the fuck you say. And you probably should just avoid social media altogether. I did see something the other day that was saying that like 90 or 95% of all of Twitter is like 10% of the Twitter users. So it's like whatever like 90% of the traffic on Twitter is coming from like 10% of Twitter users.
Mm-hmm.
So Twitter is not exactly like a reflection of society,
right?
Which isn't shocking to me because I don't really know any regular people that use Twitter. Like the only people I know that use Twitter are like kind of like younger millennials and like Gen Z people who are all like college educated, and then like some college educated like people my age. But it's not like you have like Facebook. I feel is much more representative of like average society because everybody's on Facebook, but Twitter is like a very specific subsection of society that's on there. It's skewed. I think it was saying the same thing was saying that like around 70% of Twitter users are like more progressive leftists, like type political affiliation. So, and Twitter is what seems to be what's behind cancel culture. Because whenever you see somebody having to apologize, it's because they got attacked on Twitter. It's never because like so and so said this and Facebook went ape shit and they were getting called out on Facebook, or they were getting, I don't even know what so they were getting called out on Instagram. It's always they were getting called out on Twitter. So I feel like that's kind of like behind a lot of this too, is like Twitter's kind of skewed towards like a group that's going to be much more outraged by stuff than the average society is. Whereas I feel like if something's not offensive to at least like 30-40% of society, then is it really that offensive? Like if only like 10% of society is outraged by something, then there's not really outrage. Like you're just having to apologize because that 10% has an amplified voice because of Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what it is in Australia, but in America, in the news, like CNN, MSNBC, they always show tweets.
Yeah.
Like Twitter has somehow become part of news.
Well,
whereas like it didn't used to be.
It became part of news because of Trump. That's all. It wasn't before, not before Trump. It wasn't news, you know. But no, I don't feel that way. I think that I think you're probably just for the first time feeling the heat of not being able to say what it is you want to say. And so that's confronting. You know, I always, no matter what space I'm in, have to, and I've been so used to that, watching what I say all my life, you know? And that's something that most people of color know that they have to do because they know how to code switch. I'm sure you've heard your girlfriend talk about that, right? Code switching.
I don't think she's really talked to me about it, but I've heard other people talk about it.
Okay, you know what it is, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so yeah. So, no, it's. I mean, the only thing now where people are like, oh, is instead of, because before, like I'd say like 5 years ago, if I would be like, damn, that's really racist. That's a racist thing to say. Don't say that. Mm. The response, especially from a white person, would be like, oh, you want to use the race card? Yeah, that's funny. That, you know, and you were really looked down upon if you use the race card. So you had to sort of re-strategize different ways to get what you to say what you needed to say, you know, and to get your point across. And most of the time it wasn't calling out an injustice because it would be looked upon as like, you know, you're just pulling the race card. Now, if I say like, that's a racist thing to say, people are like, oh shit, I don't want to be labeled as racist because I don't want work to find out. I don't want to go to jail or get fired, you know? And so it's different. But I do remember you were mentioning like in the 90s how this happened. And I think that's when the whole race thing became a thing. I think that's when the whole like, oh, you're racist type shit became it was a thing, boy. But yeah,
that's where I feel like PC culture it goes way overboard is with the racism thing. Like anytime you have like a disagreement about like something, especially like leftists, I know, like they're always quick to label that person a racist. It's like, whoa. There's a gap between like you guys having a disagreement on like whatever this is and that person being a racist, like because being a racist is like a pretty serious thing. Like,
no, I mean, lots of people don't know that they're racist. Like lots of people don't know that they're racist. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you just like.
How can you not know you're racist? Like
you have to like in a racist. You don't have to participate actively in racist culture to be racist.
Well, I know, but I'm saying like in order for you to, well, I guess maybe I have a different definition of racist, but in order for somebody to be a racist, in my opinion, like they have to think of like other races as inferior in some way, not like have this unknown bias because they've like lived in some society that's like that kind of thing.
Yeah. You could definitely be, you can have implicit bias, which is racism, and not know that you're racist.
Well, if that's the case, then I think we need to come up with a different term for the dudes doing segregation in the '60s. Then, because if you're using the same term to like to like for what you're saying, and then the same term for the dudes who are like sick and dogs on people and killing Emmett Till for saying something to a white
No, if you're
the same term.
If you're benefiting from that culture and you don't know that you're benefiting from that culture, and someone's saying, hey, you're benefiting from that culture and I'll tell you why, and you're like, but I'm not racist.
Well, I know that's because we're taught that like racism is like this hatred thing, like where you actively like hate black people and want to see black people treated as second-class citizens and return to Jim Crow type stuff.
No,
that's what America was taught racism is, and now we're redefining racism and we're lumping it in with like the Jim Crow stuff. So it's like when you tell a white person they're racist, what they're hearing is, I don't support Jim Crow. Like I 100% am against like return to segregation and like Jim Crow stuff. I don't want to see slavery again. That's what we're taught racism is. So it's like, that's why I feel like they need to come up with a different term for that, since they've redefined what racism is sometime in the past 20, 30 years.
No, they didn't redefine what racism is. Racism is still the same. It's still the same.
That's not what we were taught racism is.
Yes, we were. It's like look up the definition.
Just no, because like right now, like you have people that like leftists I know that say every single white person, regardless, every single white person in America is racist. Like it's impossible for you not to be racist and a white person. So that's not what I was taught growing up in school. I don't think that's what you were taught growing up in school, that all white people are racist.
Yeah, but you weren't taught that all white people are racist, right? Because there are white people who are nice, there are white people who are kind, there are even racist white people who are nice and kind. And
like those white people that like rode the freedom buses and got the shit beat out of them in the South to try and end segregation, are those white people racist? If all white people are racist, they got to be racist too, right?
Yeah, no, I think that anybody who benefits from a racist institution and knows that they're benefiting from a racist institution and does nothing to actually work that or work against that is racist. And I do think that in America, if you were built on these systems, if you were built in these systems, you're just, how could you not be? It's like,
So if we're saying that like abolitionists and slave owners are both racist, then like there needs to be like a different type of racism. I don't know, like there needs to be I don't know, there needs to be a different word to define like the slave owner who is actively going out of their way to keep people enslaved, and the white abolitionists who are risking their lives to try and free black people. Because when you say all white people are racist, like both of those don't, like that's very confusing.
Yeah, we just need to go by the term. So whatever you were taught in school is whatever you were taught in school. We're just going by the term, right? Racism, prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or a marginalized group. The belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. So I think in a lot of instances, white people are not aware of the fact that they are, because you've just grown up with it your entire life. You have nothing else to be like, could I, it's like, that's what we have. That's all we've had. Like, we can't run away from what is.
I would guess by that same logic, that would mean all men are sexist and all straight people are homophobic to some degree.
Homophobic? No, I wouldn't.
Well, because we live in a society that definitely gives advantages to straight people or heterosexual people. It's a heterosexual, I don't know what the term would be, but whatever the term for patriarchy or white supremacy, like we definitely live in a hetero, whatever that term is.
We do. We live in a
So whether or not you were aware or not, like you've been privileged to be hetero.
I've been privileged. Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why I am like, oh, this is a little bit of an issue for me to say she and her, right? It's because I function in a heterosexual society and I know what I look like and I've done fine. Same thing with patriarch. The same thing with the patriarch. So, like, I know that America's sexist. We are sexist. It's always been like that. And I know how to maneuver. And I've accepted that that's the way shit is. But as soon as it turns, I'm with the shits. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to pretend like it isn't there.
I understand that. But I'm saying, like, if they use the same term to describe you because you're hetero, as the same term as like the cops who were like going out of their way to like beat gay people back in the 60s. Like that would be confusing for you to be like, no, I'm not that. Like there's got to be a different term to identify me to differentiate between that.
What would be the term? Like
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like that's where I'm saying the kind of the problem with PC culture comes from.
Yeah, but no. For example, if someone said like you benefit from a patriarchal society, I would say yes. I would say no, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, but I know how to function. Do I think that my brothers benefit from a patriarchal society? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Do I think that I've had an easier life based on the way I looked? If someone said to me, you know, as an example, one time someone said to me, you can't talk about Black issues because you're biracial. You can't talk about Black issues because you look the way you do, right? And I was like, at first I was pissed. I was like, there's no way you can say that.
Yeah.
And then I experienced life in Australia. And I'm like, hold on. I can talk about a few things now. I can talk about a few things, all right? And now I kind of get it. And I realize why I couldn't talk about things so well. And there are some things that I still can't, you know, and I understand that it's a little bit of a difference. And it sort of pains me. You know what I mean? Like I sort of feel like a little bit of an outsider. And it's just like, well, it is what it is. That it's true, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's just, you know, it just is. I don't have any kind of problems with that. But anyway, we have talked for almost an hour, as we do.
As we do.
I was hoping to get to the other conversation here, but it doesn't look like we will today. Chris, it's been such a pleasure. I can keep going and keep going and I got more examples.
I know. It was a great one. I feel like we could talk for hours on this.
Oh, especially. Oh my God. But hopefully soon we get to talk about another pressing issue. But if we don't, it's been wonderful. Thanks for coming back on the show. And
yes,
you wouldn't.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say it was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Forgot how much I missed it sometimes. But yeah, so everybody, it's been another one. Do us a great favor, like, share, subscribe down at the bottom. And until next week, that's it. That's all I got.
Is not my new black.